TV market from broadcasting the game. But does that have any effect? Because I don't know the answer to this on watching it on some of the other services that they have, like the NFL package, the direct ticket, those kind of things. Because if that's the case, I think a lot of people are into that anyway with fantasy football and stuff. And I'll pose this question back to Bill, who's back on with us. Bill, what I was just asking was with the blackout policy. Now that stops the game from being on the local broadcast, but that does not stop the game from being on your direct ticket or your NFL package or whatever, right?
Exactly, and that's
today,
one of the things that I told Mrs. Dr. Football when we moved here. Her having worked for your Cleveland Indians owner's nephew for 13 years over at Cablevision, who owned the Knicks and the Rangers.
Okay.
We were always loyal Cablevision customers because that was her company. I said, when we're getting out here to AZ, I'm sorry, we're getting the dish. And she said, no problem, we'll get DirecTV. And, I've mentioned to you in a previous show several months back what DirecTV and the NFL Network were doing, especially for DTV customers.
Oh, yeah, we've talked about some of that. I didn't know if they had, because some networks can geolocate their programming where they can block out your programming regardless if it's a paid service or not. Like if the game's blacked out, they can geolocate that area if it's Cleveland. And anybody who is within the blackout zone, they could black it out on the network too or on your devices. So I didn't know if that was a part of the blackout policy too, because to me, I know a lot of people obviously watch on local TV, but with fantasy football and all of that, and like Mike was saying, wanting to watch all your teams and all your players, I think that a lot of the football fans already get the packages anyway. So if that's the case and those games aren't affected by the blackouts, then the blackout has already become obsolete because people are already finding an end round around it anyway.
Right, and it just so happens that they do that. If there is a game in your area on local TV, DirecTV tells you it's blacked out. So
there you go. Okay.
If I want to watch the Cardinals, all right, and I do watch the Cardinals, if I want to watch the Cardinals, I don't get that on my package unless they're at a road game. I can only see that if they're home on the either CBS or NBC or not NBC because they have the night game, but either CBS or Fox. I can't see them on DirecTV because they're a home game, and even though I live 2 hours away from Phoenix, that's still my region.
Right, but you know what? Even though there's other ways, there's two ways right off the top of my head, and I know people that do this. Number one, there's just internet streaming of everything nowadays. I can watch any sporting event from anywhere I go. I've taken advantage of this for years by traveling a lot with wrestling and having to do the show. I can watch games from anywhere because of that. And I know it's illegal streaming, but as long as it's something that I pay for at home, I don't feel that bad about watching the things on the road. It's not like I don't have it. I just am on the road and I can't access my cable box, So maybe that's
right.
There is
legal streaming.
There's legal streaming too. But the other thing is you can, and a lot of people that are tech savvy, and I think that this generation is more tech savvy than anyone previously, is it's very easy to end run around your location for those networks, and you can simply it's a proxy, and it just changes where you're from. So even if the game was blacked out in your area, if you're using a proxy server to go online, you're still going to be able to watch it because it's not going to know where you're watching it from. So really, that has become almost obsolete, and I have no doubt that gets cut out sooner rather than later.
Right, and both DirecTV and my phone provider, Sprint, provide TV apps also. So I could be anywhere in the country or anywhere in North America, and I could just plug into my Genie, my TiVo here in the house, and watch whatever I recorded or watch whatever I'm receiving at home on my iPad or on my laptop, wherever I am. So that's
Absolutely.
a great thing. And I know I did that last year when I covered the draft. I was recording. It drove my wife nuts too because she couldn't record anything, on my back TV in the office,
right?
Because I was recording the draft.
No, but hey, that's a great tool to be able to go back to that. Like you said, when you're on the road, you got your device, you're watching your DVR, yeah, that's a great tool for what we do. Absolutely. Let's get into what we do, Dr. Football. A lot of things I wanted to get into here with the Browns. You know what? Let me start. Let's just get the ranting part out of this. At the beginning of the show, I talked about this a little bit, but I'm sure, and I love talking to you guys who are not in Cleveland, because I like seeing things from the perspective not of just you, but what you're hearing and what you see all the way across the country where you're at, because it is different than what we see here locally. But they signed Rex Grossman, the Browns. They pick up Rex Grossman, and instantly, people literally created a rumor out of nowhere. And I love watching the phenomenon on social media of a unfounded rumor being created, turned into a news story, and then being sourced across the country as the source of the story, and then that broadcast being an additional source of the story, and all of it is coming off of just something that was made up. And looking at, I mean, seriously, even if you are the staunchest John Manziel supporter and you want him to win the job, that's great. Nobody in their right mind thinks that the Browns are going to trade Brian Hoyer to go with Rex Grossman as their number 2 quarterback. I said earlier, if they had picked up a better quarterback, if there was somebody that I could at least go, even Jason Campbell last year, I mean, I'd go, okay, well, they may be thinking about trading Hoyer, but in no way in the last few seasons has Kyle Shanahan shown any interest in actually playing Rex Grossman at quarterback. I believe that the Browns were 100% legit when they said he's here because he's better than Tyler Thigpen, and we upgraded the 3rd quarterback position. There is nothing to see here. Move along. And yet people continue to beat that. I just think that if the Browns, I don't care about Hoyer versus Manziel, if the Browns traded Hoyer with the knowledge that Rex Grossman would be their backup quarterback for this season, then you got problems with the way that they put this roster together, and you've got deeper problems than just Brian Hoyer versus John Manziel. That shows me a screwed up thought process. What are your thoughts on that whole deal?
Well, you know, it's funny you brought that up, because one of my very good friends is Matt Overton from the Colts, and he happens to also like the Sports Fix and does listen to the show when he has time, even though he's in Indianapolis. And I actually found out about that from him. He messaged me and said, Rex Grossman on the Browns?
Yeah.
with 3 question marks, and I said, oh, really? And, of course, I found it from your buddy Ryan Ruiz on the page this morning, and I sent him a message that I CC'd you on that. I said, hey, that's good reporting. That's good work, because he actually took what was the rumor and placed the story, you know, at the level, you know, of coverage that it deserved.
Right, but that's the thing, and forget, like I said, forget Hoyer versus Manziel. What are your thoughts on the thought of, I mean, could you possibly, I mean, look at that and see, I don't get how people see that, like, and the other thing to me too is part of me feels like that's the Manziel people saying, our guy he's the greatest in the world, but he's having trouble beating out this career backup. So let's move the career backup out of his way and give him the job. I just think if that's what the Browns were going to do, that would have been the game plan from day one, baby. And then the talk that you can't have a disgruntled Brian Hoyer on the staff if he doesn't make the team. There is not a disgruntled bone in Brian Hoyer's body. He would easily transition into being the backup like he was to start last season. He was the 3rd quarterback. You know what I mean? He would easily. That's what his skill set is fitting into whatever role you ask him to play and doing it well. I have no doubt in my mind that if they went up to them today and said, hey, Johnny's our guy, Brian Hoyer would do everything in his power to help him for the rest of the season and to do what he does. So that's my thing is the thought that there would be a disgruntled Brian Hoyer here is the most insane, and that's talking from people that don't even know what Brian Hoyer's jersey number is. They've never seen him in person. These are people that are told from a friend. Like you said, somebody told you something. Somebody tells them something. These people don't even know who Brian Hoyer is, and I get a kick out of that watching that narrative, and I'm like, come on, man. I mean, seriously, if this was the end game, the Browns would have done this a different way. They would have said, this is our guy. We're going to give Brian a chance to go somewhere else and start. We're going to bring in this guy and this guy and this guy to compete for the backup job. Let's go. But they didn't for a reason. And I don't see them bailing out in the middle of training camp. I mean, I know last year the Goofs in charge traded Trent Richardson, and that was great to get the first-round pick, but they did it the way they did it and kind of tanked the beginning part of the season, just kind of caught people by surprise, even though I'm in full agreement of the trade. I don't see this regime doing that to start the beginning of the season. And the other thing, too, is for all the talk of this locker room being 50-50 between the two quarterbacks, the way I described moving Brian Hoyer out of Manziel's way and giving him the job, you don't think part of the locker room is going to see it that way? There's not a chance in hell that they trade Brian Hoyer unless some stupid team offered them an incredibly ridiculous offer that they felt they couldn't pass up. And I'm not talking about Andre Johnson either. Then maybe they consider it. But even then, I think they look at each other and go, man, I don't know that I want to go with a rookie quarterback and Rex Grossman.
You know, and I agree with that. You know, Rex Grossman was not brought in to become the starter. Rex Grossman is a veteran quarterback who is going to be like an extra coach for those quarterbacks, for Hoyer and Manziel. And he was brought in to offer some veteran stability. Hey, you know, it is disappointing when you have to let a kid like Tyler Thigpen go, but when you have an opportunity to get a guy like Rex Grossman who's willing to hold a clipboard, very similar to what Jason Garrett did for the Giants, you know, in the last decade before he became coach. Jerry?
Yes, you disappeared for a second. There you go. I thought you were...
No, I was just saying that, you know...
I thought you fell off again.
Similar... Yeah, I just... Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're good, brother.
Okay, all right. You know, that's what, you know, Jason Garrett's role was the same thing, you know, with Dallas and with the Giants as a player.
Yeah, I mean, that's common sense. And everybody that I know that uses common sense went to that reaction right away. Like, and then I see the crazy side of these, and this rumor that turned into fact. Like, I'm telling you, I saw some people, and because you know how you play a game of telephone, and by the time it gets to the 10th person, the message is completely changed. Man, my timeline had tweets on it like, yep, word out of Berea, Brian Hoyer will be traded by the end of the week, and blah, blah, and things like that. And I'm going, man, people will take one little nugget that's not even fact, and then they'll twist that up even more, and you end up, you know, wondering why at the end of the day they say the quarterback's wearing the pretty pink dress, and actually they said this quarterback is the best. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, that's the difference between guys in the media who do their background and who do their homework and guys who want to be first with a story. And, you know, a good friend of mine who's a broadcaster in Southern California and who was the first woman to have a drive time sports show on the radio in California said to me, 140 words on Twitter does not a news story make.
And that's true, brother. Twitter journalism is unfortunately the way it's moving, but you're absolutely right. I just thought that was insane. I wanted to ask you your thoughts on it. And I talked to some people yesterday when the story was first breaking. To a man, everybody, and again, no offense, if you want to trade Brian Hoyer, then I'm not trying to offend you when I say that you're not thinking very intelligently about this whole thing. And then the best part is you want to tell me that the Browns are going to win and you want them to make this decision at the same time. Because to me, and I'm just saying this, and I'm again, if Manziel wins the job, he wins the job. Let's not even talk about that right now. But when you install him, I don't believe that you are in any way, I mean, yeah, you can say, well, we're going to try to win with the kid, but you are clearly acknowledging that this is a building season. And that's another reason that, you know, that plays in Hoyer's favor. But I think once you make that, and plus the point that John McMullen made yesterday that we keep going back to, once you make that move is made and there's no going back. And if things go wrong, there's just too much of a door open for problems. It's so much easier for the Browns to open the season status quo, and when the time comes to make the change, and everybody's happy with it.
Right. The only downside to this is now you have to carry three quarterbacks. You can't
Not necessarily. And I don't agree.
You can't expose him to waivers and
True,
expect another team not to pick him up to do the same thing.
Who's going to pick him up? He's been sitting on the street all winter. My thought yesterday, I said, was if you need Rex Grossman, by the time you need him, he'll still be on the street. I mean, he's been there this whole time. I do believe that you don't necessarily have to carry him. You don't have to carry three quarterbacks, and I don't think the Browns will. I'm not a fan of carrying three quarterbacks.